State-owned companies pose very serious risks to the fiscal framework. This is according to Finance Minister Tito Mboweni delivering his maiden budget speech. He says government is facing deterioration in the financial position of state-owned companies, with some struggling to stay afloat without financial assistance. Mboweni says requests for funding were received from Eskom, SAA, SABC and DENEL.
The Finance Minister says it's time the country asks if there's still a need for these struggling state-owned enterprises. Mboweni says from now, government bailouts will go with tough conditions, including being monitored on how the money is being used and implementation of changes. Eskom will face restructuring as it is not financially sustainable and cannot meet the country's energy needs, undermining economic growth prospects and the drive to attract new fixed investments. The power utility will be broken down into 3 entities. The Eskom board is developing operation plans for each business unit, and government will give consideration to the proposals in the next 3 months. The power utility will receive 23 billion rand per year over the next 3 years. Mboweni stressed that government would not be taking on Eskom's debt and it will not be privatized.
So 69 billion over 3 years, 23 per year that we are providing to Eskom is meant to help them pay off their debts. It's not meant for salaries.
Along with Eskom, SAA, South African Post Office and DENEL required guarantees and recapitalization in the past financial year. Government says they still are in conversation with the SABC to see how the public broadcaster can be assisted with the 6.8 billion rand it requested. The guarantees and bailouts put further pressure on the already strained fiscals. The contingent liability posed by state-owned companies has gone higher. This is in an environment where the debt to GDP ratio is increasing. This raises the threat of South Africa being downgraded further by rating agencies. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says should South Africa be downgraded, the implications would be far-reaching.
If we are to be downgraded, we will fall out of the WGBI, the World Government Bond Index, and understand that being in the World Government Bond Index actually reduced our cost of capital as a country, because investors who have to track that index end up buying our bonds just so that they can replicate the index. And as it stands, foreigners own about 38% of our domestic rand-denominated bonds. And that becomes a very important channel. So it becomes important for us to actually be having a macroeconomic settings that are constantly credit positive.
Analysts believe South Africa is walking a thin line.
If the promises that the minister has made with respect to restructuring of state-owned enterprises, especially Eskom, is done effectively, then it just might keep back the rating agencies from downgrading. If it drags on, if politics gets in the way or inefficiency gets in the way, not to do what the minister has quite categorically said it has to be done, they will downgrade us.
I think they know it was a very, very difficult budget because of course, because of the Eskom crisis. So I think Treasury has come up with a way of actually minimizing the damage. And I think probably what we'll see is the rating agencies giving us the benefit of the doubt until after the elections, and then they'll reassess to see, developments at Eskom, but also more generally what we're going to see in the way of economic policy.
The risks to the government finances and the economic outlook remain elevated. The economy is expected to grow at a downwardly revised 1.5% this year from an earlier expected 1.7%. The Finance Minister says the country needs to implement a range of structural reforms that will boost confidence, investments and economic growth. Gloria Stefako Musi, SABC News, Parliament.